Hey guys, welcome back to the layout. So today I've got another HO scale review for you. I'm going to be reviewing my Bachmann Alco MLW RS3. So I got a lot of great feedback from my last review and I wanted to continue reviewing the locomotives I had. So this is second in the list and I've got one more locomotive. I've got two of them, but they're the same model. So I will be coming out with a video in the next little bit about doing a review on my Atlas Alco C424s. So that's really exciting, guys. I really appreciate everybody's feedback from my last video, but without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Okay guys, so here we have, like I mentioned, my Bachmann Alco Montreal Locomotive Works RS3. A little background info for this. I purchased this not too long ago, I want to say about a month, 2 months. I purchased this for $179. It comes factory with sound. Of course, it's just the select sound, much like a lot of the kind of inexpensive trains from the brands that you get. I've got to say, at first, I really wasn't too sure. This is one of those things where it's an Alco, and it is in the scheme I wanted. I've been fishing around this for a little while, and I decided, okay, let's give it a shot. So I read some reviews, you know, they were pretty mixed, so I wasn't quite sure what to expect, but I figured I'd give it a try because I'm pretty easygoing. I'm fairly impressed. I do actually really enjoy the way it runs. Some of the looks bother me, but you know, that can be things that can be changed in the future. You know, running this now for a couple times, I actually use this in my last op session. I enjoy it. It's one of those where, you know, down the road you can probably fix a couple things, and I'd be happy with it. So let's go ahead and get started. Just some background info, sorry, that I did want to mention. So these were made by Alco, and in this case, Montreal Locomotive Works, from 1950 to 1956. Approximately 1,418 were built, according to Wikipedia. Basically, these have 1,600, so that's 1,600 horsepower, and they're powered by Alco's 244 12-cylinder diesel engine. Basically, these were built to compete with EMD's GP7, Baldwin's AS16, and Fairbanks and Morse H1644 locomotives. It basically was an upgrade from the RS2, adding about 100 horsepower. So it was just kind of them trying to keep up with the demand. So basically what I'm going to do is let's take a look against the prototype. Now, this is a good example, if we can just put that up and zoom out and up a smidge. So, right off the bat, it's certainly not perfect. My previous review of the S2 was better, but with this, this is a great example of they make one mold and they just across the board it's the same, which is a little unfortunate, but for cost reasons, very understandable. I think this is another one of these cases where you really get what you pay for under $200 for a sound-equipped locomotive. And from Bachmann, you know, you kind of expect things not to be perfect. And I was slightly disappointed, but at the same time, you know, it's not a big deal. It's nothing that you can't truly add on later if you want. So, first of all, we're going to start kind of at the front. And maybe what I'll do is I'll go over kind of what it has versus what the prototype has. And so starting at the front, we're missing the spotlights right in this top left corner here. They're just looking at, it looks like some lighting. So we're missing that, and right away you can see also in the prototype you do not have the number boards. In fact, the number board is at the very front, and it looks like in their model, and we'll see this when I turn it around to see the front, there is a spot to mount the number board at the front. So we've just got some extra mounting boards on each side that weren't prototypically there. Now, sorry, this photo is actually from 1975, and it was taken in Montreal. So this is actually pretty close to what my prototype model should look like, because I'm modeling 1976. But due to my artistic skill, I may just leave it be for a while until I venture to that way. So, kind of moving back, you have the radiator cover here, and that looks good. Again, we have this handrails, which are plastic, pretty secure actually. You can press it, but it doesn't feel like it's just gonna fall off in your hands. You know, it's connected to the base down here, and down over here. So that's kind of nice. Kind of looking down at the trucks, they're pretty good. You can definitely see they don't have as much detail, but you know what? They look pretty decent. They're the correct shape, the correct trucks. I'm pretty happy with them. Trucks isn't something too huge for me as long as they're remotely nice looking. So I'd say that looks pretty good. And kind of moving back, you have this big cylinder with the gas tank, and that looks decently accurate. The gas tank sticking out just a little bit, or the cylinder isn't sticking out enough. But I would say that's pretty good representation of it. Kind of moving back up here. Immediately you're going to notice we're missing all of these darkened fan vents. There are fan vents, not the same shape though, unfortunately. So that's something that's completely different. But really, what can you do? You have the smokestack, which seems smaller on the model than it is the prototype, but it's hard to see from this picture. We'd need a different picture to truly see the value. I'm not too bothered. It looks a little odd now just sitting here, but I think once you weather it up, that will be okay. Obviously, you've got the fan up here. That looks decent with the grill on it. Moving further back, the CP Rail logo seems to be pretty spot on with the picture, so that's nice. Moving forward back, you're missing this box under the cab step here. In the model, you've just got a small step and then the base, whereas in the prototype you have the box and then a step. So that's a pretty big difference. Not a big deal to add one and paint it up. So it's not kind of a deal breaker. Moving forward, the horn is also in the wrong place. You can see it's mounted onto the front of the cab. In this case, it's actually on the body. Again, it actually doesn't even look like the same horn, to be completely honest. So that may need to be swapped out if you're looking to get that. Kind of moving forward, you've got a nice latch here that fits. The windows look decent. You look like you've got some shutter, like a shutter for the window right here, which isn't on the model, but it's really hard to see. That could just be some of the window. Moving back, this back box actually looks 100% spot on. You've got the two little kind of grates on each side, and then the multi-mark is painted over here, and again you've got this extra number board which does not belong on the prototype. All in all, I think like I said before, it's one of those, you get what you pay for. I could certainly put the work into it and add what's missing or change what's there. I I don't care. I like it, but I mean, I will eventually change some things, but not everything. So let's just kind of, I'm just going to take the picture out, and we're going to just kind of point it towards the camera here, and I'm going to zoom in because now we're not comparing to the prototype. So you can see it comes with another one of those couplers that do not split in the middle. It actually has a little spring here for the knuckle. That's nice. Just like the S2 from Bachmann, you're missing the air hoses and everything coming down, which is a little disappointing, but you know, considering we were missing it from the S2, I'm not completely surprised we're missing it here. And you have this little movable metal wire bar here that I'm not quite sure what it's called still, but that's nice because it does add some unique detail to it. I've got to say this front grille looks pretty cheap looking. It's nice because there's a lot going on, and there is a metal part to it, this metal bar that kind of runs across, but this is all plastic, the chain included, and that's clearly, you know, the step that comes out over the coupler that's supposed to fold down, which is secured. I can't fold it down. And the chain is painted red and is just plastic. It's just part of the mold. So that's a smidge disappointing because I think it looks kind of cheap. The red doesn't match terribly well. That's something that I could certainly see myself changing in the future. Here's what I was talking about up here, the small, it's almost like a place to mount the number board, but it wasn't used in this case. So, I mean, what are you going to do? Now the light, compared to the S2, which has the same light, this is not very bright. In fact, on this one, it has a dim and a bright setting. You can dim the lights, and there's not terribly much difference. Now, I'm not quite sure. I have added it to the roster on my JMRI, but I haven't actually changed any settings. I wanted to leave everything stock default until after I did the review, because it would be unfair of me to review something that I've tampered with. So I very well may be able to up the brightness. If not, it could just be a simple bulb replacement. It works, it's just not as bright as the S2 or any of my other locomotives. And it dims properly, but I think that likely I will see about changing that. Just moving up to look at the cab. The cab looks pretty close to the prototype. Not perfect, but like I said, we have some nice detail here behind the smokestack. You can't really see it, and then you've got that kind of funny curved windows and curved cab look to it, but I kind of enjoy that. I think it looks pretty cool, very similar to the S2. If we just simply rotate it again to the back and go back down, so it's pretty much exactly the same, other than we have the brake control wheel right here, which is kind of a nice feature, and it looks like there's like a nib right on where that number board mount is, so I'm not quite sure if that's meant to be anything or not. I really couldn't tell you. But exactly the same detail down here. We've got some nibs, almost like small antennas, two of them here, but that's pretty much it. So overall, visually, I think they could have done a lot better. It's not that I'm complaining, because I do like the way it looks, and again, I'm a firm believer in you get what you pay for, and I'm not prepared to go out and pay $300 for a locomotive not in the CP Action Red multi-mark scheme and then have to repaint it and what have you. So this was already painted from the factory, and I think they did a pretty decent job, actually. The paint job looks good. It's the correct red. The multi-mark is correct. You know, you've got the black and white stripes on the back, the red and white stripes on the front. You know, everything looks pretty crisp and clean that way, so I'm happy there. It's just like I said, when you put it to the prototype, it's not correct, and I think that's just a case of they have one mold and just copy it over. So I think I'm gonna have to give it maybe like a 5 out of 10 for visual. I think, like I said, the paint looks good. Everything seems really solid. The trucks, the underbody looks good. And even on the body itself, there are lots of details here with the small vents and the doors, and there are lots and lots of details. I think they did really well, but they really could have done better. And between missing the prototype vents here, the box here, the horn, the number boards, the air hoses, I would have to say it's a 5 out of 10 in this case. Not taking away from it whatsoever, because if you're like me and you're just looking for a very inexpensive sound unit that comes in your scheme, then just like I said, I'm pretty satisfied with it. But I probably will make some changes in the future. So let's go ahead, pop this on my track, and see how it runs and sounds. Okay, so here we are on the layout. I tried desperately to figure out how to get this to do its startup shutdown sound, but I don't know if I'm just mistaken. I even checked the instructions. I'm not able to get it to do a startup or shutdown sequence. I can't even remember if there was one when I mute that track, or when I shut power off to that track, because that's actually my programming setting, so there's 0 power to that track right now, and I turn it back on. It just goes right into the engine sequence. So there, this is certainly one of those soundtrack selects. It has very few features. I thought for sure it at least had a startup sequence. So regardless, it does not have one. And that's gonna suck for some people. I know I'm a little disappointed now that I've verified that, but I guess what are you gonna do, right? So let's go ahead and move this a little closer. So the thing about this, and again, this is completely default, I haven't changed anything. This locomotive won't move until I get to speed step 7 on my Digitrack. So whether that's percentage or actually out of the speed steps, everything's just set up as default. So as soon as I apply 1, so it's not moving, but it is on 1, right? And we go 2, still nothing, 3, and you can hear it. It has in fact revved up, and it is louder and making a different sound than it was at idle. But we're up to 4, 5, 6. Okay, so sorry, 6, not 7. 6. Now you can see it's actually very smoothly kind of rolling down the track at a slow speed, and I gotta say, just like the S2, very nice slow speed control. If I go down to 5, it does stop. If I go back up to 6, off it goes. You get a little burst of power, and it very happily, if I can follow it with the camera, we're gonna bring it down right here. So you can see, I'm just gonna, well, I'll keep going a little more. That's 7, and we'll stop there. So, some locomotives have, actually, before I mention that, you just heard the kind of idle down speed. That was kind of nice. But some locomotives have the dynamic brake automatically, which is nice. So sound-wise, it's okay, but certainly not perfect. Now, I don't know if you guys noticed that, but when I did stop it, it did not slowly use its momentum and then come to its stop. It just halted right away, which is a little unfortunate again. If it was a more expensive decoder, that would be changed. Obviously, that's not a motor thing. That is strictly built into the decoder. Again, I may be able to change the settings on JMRI, but at this point, completely default, it just stops right away. So let's go ahead and look at some of the settings. We have our function 1, which is the bell. Your basic bell. I don't really know big differences. I like it. I'm not quite sure. I'm not up to, you know, what kind of bell that is or what kind of horn or anything like that. So I apologize for not being knowledgeable in that sense. But I think the bell is pretty decent. The horn, this is function 2, which is the long horn. So that's just me pressing as long as I want. As long as I hold down the button, it will continue to blow the horn. It sounds pretty good to me. Again, I'm really not sure what kind of horn that is, but I think it sounds good. I like the horn. And this locomotive also is fairly loud. I mean, I'm in a small room, but you know, some things are overly loud or overly quiet, and this is right at a sweet spot, to be honest. I do like the way it sounds, but out of the box. So this is function 3, which is the short horn. Okay, which is nice. All right, we're gonna look at now. In this case, it does not have function 4, function 5, or function 6. Okay. Again, it is a soundtrack select decoder, I believe. So, yeah, soundtrack. Yeah. So it's going to be missing a lot of features. To be expected. Again, for $180, they make massive cuts. Okay, so now function 7, which should be the headlight dimmer, which it is. So I think I mentioned it while I was over there, but the headlight is very dim to begin with. That is at full brightness. And let me see if I can zoom in further. So that's it, full brightness. I've seen better, to be honest. And this is it dim, and then this is it off. So that's it off, that's it dim, and that's it full brightness. So again, maybe something I can change in the decoder settings, but it's not quite as bright. I don't know why they wouldn't just use the same headlights as the S2, because those looked awesome. And it's the exact same on the backside when I'm in reverse. So that's your headlight dimmer. Function 8 is obviously mute. And like I said, there's no shut off sequence, nothing like that. It's just straight mute. Okay? And unmute. And then there's no function 9, and your function 0 is lights. So that's pretty much it. I think it runs pretty good. There's no massive engine, like motor rumble, anything like that. The slow speed is nice. I do wish that it did have that momentum stop, which again could be changed. I think a lot of this is simply just the soundtrack's select decoder. I think that if actually in the future I may end up ordering a lock sound decoder for it, because that's what I have in my Atlas C424s and I love them. But nonetheless, this is a fun little locomotive. Like I said, I used it in my last operating session and I really enjoyed it. It's not perfect, but it runs good, it's reliable. I just had fun with it. And I liked it a lot. So there we have it. I would say performance out of this issue, I'm just going to mute that so you can hear me talking a little better here. Performance on a scale of 1 to 10. I would have to give this, for motor control, I would say motor control and sound, because you can't just pick away at the motor, because a lot of the motor features are controlled by the decoder. So I guess performance and sound all together, I would give it a 7 out of 10. The soundtrack select really limits the amount of functions we have, and out of the box, again, pending configuration of my own, out of the box, I would say 7 out of 10. So that means we have a 5 out of 10 visual and a 7 out of 10 performance and sound rating. Now, if you're like me, I'll probably leave this engine for a very long time like this. I enjoy it. It's fun to rip around in and do what I gotta do. And I have no complaints about it, to be completely honest. I'm not one of those picky people. And there's nothing wrong with the picky people, don't get me wrong, but I'm not one of them. I'm not going to pick apart every single little thing that's wrong with this locomotive and send it back or complain. I knew what I was doing when I purchased it. I knew it was going to be, you know, subpar to a $400 locomotive, you know, from a bigger brand. This is a Bachmann. I paid under $200 for a sound engine. You're gonna pretty well get what you pay for. Alright guys, so that's pretty much it. I hope you guys found this informational, very useful. I hope I answered some of your questions. Again, this is my second review. I got some feedback from my previous one. One of the comments were to take off the shell. Now, in this case, I'm not, because clearly there's already a speaker and the decoder and everything in that. So I'm not going to bother taking the shell off unless I have to. Maybe in a future video, but certainly not in the reviews, because when it comes DCC equipped and sound equipped, I know that there's already a speaker and a decoder in there, so I'm not worried about when I go to put a second one in or a replacement one in. I'll be able to find the room. Other than that, I hope I answered everybody's questions. If you guys have any further questions, comments, criticisms, please mention them in the comments down below. If you found this video entertaining or informational, or you just, you know, it answered some questions, don't forget to like it. And if you're not and you want to be and you're interested in my channel, please don't forget to subscribe. That's pretty much it. So thanks so much guys for watching. Really appreciate everybody's feedback, everybody's views, all the subscribers. So thank you for watching, and until next time, enjoy your bacon.